Hello and welcome to Kain and Company. Today I get the pleasure of interviewing Christy Roman, the president of Now Digital. Christy has really been a driver of women in automotive in the conference that they held earlier this year. It's wonderful to be able to speak to a professional in the industry who really cares about paving the way and making things better for women in automotive. I've got 3 sisters and I've got 2 daughters, and I'm really bullish on the fact that women are very capable of succeeding in this industry, and we need to develop the platform to make them welcome and give them the opportunity to where they can really rise to the top. So let's get right to that interview with Christy. Greetings, Christy Roman, and thank you very much for joining me here on Kain and Company. Today I'd like to introduce the audience to you and your company, Now Digital, but more importantly, I'd like to learn about what you've got going with women in automotive. So I'll turn it over to you, and I'll just interject where I can.
So my name is Christy Roman, and I am the president of Now Digital, which is a digital consulting company. I like to say we're like the quarterback of digital marketing because we're not really partial to any vendors. We just try to help dealers use their vendors to the best of their ability. But as you alluded to, I am also the founder of Women in Automotive. We had our second event in June of this year. Was very successful. We had 400 people who attended.
Wow.
And really the purpose of the organization is to try to drive a little culture change within the dealerships. 90% of women, especially in sales, they blow out within the first year. And dealers are really needing to find other pools of talent to pull from. There's not a lot of people, not a lot of college graduates going to work at a dealership, and we felt that by starting this organization, we might be able to push change a little bit from the bottom up. Hopefully, participating in events like yours and driving sales, will also be able to work with dealers to push from the top down also.
I can sure understand that. So obviously, you know, I work with my daughter, and she's, in my opinion, really a credible source in the industry and has learned a lot through her own experience. And as in a lot of people in dealerships, you see a lot of dealers' kids come along the lines, and it's great to see dealers' daughters. Why, in your opinion, do you see the resistance for either dealers to hire women into the dealership ranks or women to avoid working in dealerships because of preconceived notions?
It's a lot of it's hours and balance, work-life balance. It's not a friendly family. It's not a family-friendly environment typically. It's very focused, as you know, sales driven. It's, you know, I always say it starts on the first. It's a 30-day month, and you start over the next month. So it's very difficult to create a work-life balance. I would say that's the number one issue. You know, 6-day work weeks, no time off, low draw. I think there's poor training oftentimes also. So people, even if they come to work there, most women work in administrative capacities. There's not a really good training structure within a lot of dealerships to help develop their people, in addition to the fact that the culture is not really conducive to professionals and women who want to have families also. It's actually not just a problem with women, it's a problem with the millennials. That's a totally different issue in terms of the way that maybe their work ethic is compared to mine, but both pools of employees are available to be hired, but we've got to figure out how to tap into that area.
So speaking of that, I'm trying to give some solutions just from your own experience, and you mentioned you've had 2 conferences now. You've obviously learned from some of the presenters. What are some of the nuggets that we can give the viewers today that might help them either create a better culture, a better recruitment strategy, and then an onboarding platform that allows them to help the new employee, the woman employee, through the early phases of indoctrination into a dealership?
So some of the suggestions, some of the things some dealers have done is offering multiple comp plans where maybe there's a plan that's a 5-day work week with a base salary and less commissions, but also having the opportunity to have a commission-only plan if you wanted to do that. And then also taking time to look at the culture and you know, statistics show that people don't necessarily want Fridays and Saturdays and Sundays off, but they would like to have 2 days off in a row. So creating the opportunity for people to be able to do that during the week, not necessarily on a weekend, but giving people 2 days off in a row. And then creating a training program that helps develop them into more educated contributors in the dealership. I mean, I would have to say if I could pick any of those, it's that one that I think is the one that does the least service within the dealership, training, development, and then trying to figure out comp plans that will help you maintain. You know, when I said 90% of women don't stay within their first year, 68% of salespeople don't stay within their first year. So this isn't just an issue with women. It's actually, again, I think it's a cultural issue. So I think dealers have to experiment. That's what, you know, when you look at CarMax and the way that they run their business, if dealers had just tried to do some things differently, there's not, this is one of your things about when it comes to BDCs and dealership, there's not a one size fits all solution. But in order to come up with one, we can all wait and figure out what everyone else is doing, or we have to go out there and start sort of trying to create our own solutions, and that's what dealerships are trying to do.
Well, it's great to see some changes and dealers really stepping up and trying to be different. Personally, I'm looking at millennials as heroes, and I wish I was brave enough to have that expectation. I grew up in an environment where it's like, yes sir, whatever you want me to do, sir, and I'll work late, I'll come in early, and I'll skip days off and all the other stuff. I've got a friend that works with Google, and he's getting ready to take his paternity leave, and he'll be off for several months. And I said, wow, I had the morning off that my daughter was born, and that worked out pretty good, and had to go back in and work at the dealership that afternoon, and that's in a family store. So I am curious, and I'd love to just get your take on this, Christy. In dealerships, women have been working for years. They're title clerks, they work in the accounting office, they are receptionists, and there are female-oriented roles that are acceptable. Is the issue more in the technical ranks, the technician type ranks, the service ranks? Because you see a lot of service writers who are women, but maybe it's the technicians and maybe it's the salespeople. And what's the shape of sales management and just general dealership leadership for women?
Yeah, sales management is probably the bigger issue. Technicians, you know, I went and visited one of the UTI here in Orlando, which is their flagship campus, and they have 2 females in their entire curriculum. So technicians are definitely not a role that women seek out. But you're right, service writers, women are great service writers, and women are great salespeople. Women are great finance directors. So being able to figure out how to get them into those positions is, I think, one of the issues that dealers face. But one thing that Lisa Copeland said is that she believes that the sales environment, and that includes service writers, needs to reflect the demographics of the customers coming into the dealership. So being able to, and that, I don't think that's going to apply in the technician field. I just don't think that we're going to see that change too much. But when it comes to service writers and finance and salespeople, there's a huge opportunity to hire women into those roles and just work on giving them more flexibility. I was reading an article about, I can't remember the name of the company, but it's a gentleman who makes paddle boards, and he came up with a 25-hour work week. And it's not, the principle of it, I think, when you read it, is not really that you have a 25-hour work week. It's the fact that in your mind, when someone psychologically tells you that, all of a sudden you get to put your life around your job, you don't have to take one or the other. And so people will still work more than 25 hours, but it's just the idea that you get to live your life and have your job. People are much more productive. They do 10 times more of the work. I forgot what the percentage was, but when he implemented that, the productivity that they got out of the 25 hours was higher than sometimes what they got in a 40-hour work week. You know, people screw around or do whatever. So it's kind of, when you're looking at the cultural issue, just trying to determine what shifts can we make that help with that psychology. You alluded to Google allowing paternity to leave for a couple months. Well, millennial men want to be home with their kids.
Sure.
And that's a new movement. So how do we address those cultural shifts where psychologically we can help set the stage when people start their careers with a dealership? to be able to have that work-life balance, even if they choose to work more hours. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's interesting that you bring up that because it harkens back to that movie Office Space, where the people are interviewing the guy and he goes, really in a day I only work about, it was less than an hour. And I think, oftentimes you go into the dealerships and the hangout time and, there is a lot of waste that takes place. And I've lived it my whole life. I was raised in my family's Ford dealership and I sat there and it just became part of my upbringing. But the fact is productivity challenges can be set aside when we've got happy employees, when we've got a mix of genders, and I think that's really a healthier work environment as well. I think you see less issues that the federal government deals with when you've got that gender mix, and it looks more reflective to society in general when you've got a population mix that's serving the customer. And I think dealers are trying to do this. Do you see resistance from dealers, or do they just, in your opinion, still just not get it? Or is it that 30-day sales cycle to where every 30 days they're like, heck man, we tried that for 20 days, it didn't work, sales fell, so we're off?
It's a combination of all of those things. The industry, from what I've seen, has a tendency to take the best salesperson and promote that person.
Yes.
Well, that person may or may not have a college education, may have no idea how to develop people, and maybe just focused on one thing. It's kind of a one-dimensional, especially in sales. It's a one-dimensional business. It's all about that number at the end of the month.
Yes.
And the problem with that is it's extremely difficult to build a culture around that. That's why there's 68% turnover. I think there has to be a broader view of the industry. I mean, certainly as an industry, there should be the opportunity to hire very professional salespeople. 80% of college graduates have no job when they graduate right now. There's no reason dealers can't be tapping into that pool, that labor pool. But maybe having that manager trying to develop those people may not be the best strategy for a dealership. Having female managers is also helpful, because when you go to hire women, they feel more comfortable seeing that women are in authority in a dealership. So I would say the first strategy, if it were me, would be who do I have within my organization that I can develop and promote into a role where they can help get more women on the floor or in service or in finance. I think that would be the strategy that I would employ. That's what Lisa Copeland employed at her dealership, the Fiat store in Austin, of just trying to put women in key positions so that they could hire more women and women could see that there was growth and opportunity within her organization.
Absolutely. Well, there's bound to be some resources in between your conference the dealers are able to tap into. What do you recommend that they visit online in order to learn a little bit more about how to improve this in between just attending your conference each year?
Well, I think, we're actually going to be doing local events and trying to get more localized where more people can get involved. We had the same resistance even with dealers locally here in Orlando, where they didn't want to send all their people at once, because then who's going to do the job? And so we're going to work on doing some more local events. But my suggestion is to look at what other businesses are doing in terms of recruiting and talent development. You know, reading articles like the one I said about the 25-hour work week, and thinking about the fact that being a happy employee is half psychological. It's not just what you do, but it's how you feel about where you are and what you're doing, and if they care about you. So I would suggest studying other industries that have, automotive has a lot of money. So there's no reason. Look at CarMax. I would actually suggest maybe having somebody in an organization go work at CarMax and learn how they train and do their process, so that you can try to implement something. Someone actually said that to me, that they were going to put one of their people in CarMax to learn their whole process and see if they could implement it within their own organizations. But other than that, I mean, just trying different things. If you can have a comp plan that caters more to a millennial that's not as interested in making $150,000 as they are having maybe a $50,000, $60,000 income that allows them to have a life and a family. Looking at, in some ways it can be cost cutting for dealerships to do that, having base salary with bonuses, and then having some closers around those people to help get the deals done. Structures like that are starting to have some effect in the dealerships who are trying to do them.
Wow. Christy, you inspire me, and I know A lot of people are going to benefit from your all's work, and I'm so proud of the effort that you've put into this, and thank you so much for joining me today. Well, it's great to hear from Christy. If you haven't considered supporting women in automotive, I really would encourage you to get involved. Take a look at their next conference coming up in the spring of 2017 and get involved at your dealership to make the place better so the women feel warm and welcome in your dealership and can actually take great care of your customers. Thank you very much for joining me, and I'll see you next week here on Kain and Company.